Indian football had a long and interesting past even before it was ruled by British colonists. When people played football in crowded streets, they had to shout and make do with goalposts. Because of that, Indian football has changed a lot since then. Most of the time, these games take place in big stadiums with the latest technology and equipment. It's clear from this action that the Indians really care about the game. Even though there's a lot of energy, Indian football has had so many problems that its good old days seem like a long time ago. Even though football is very famous, there are some major problems with the sport in India that need to be fixed right away. Infrastructure and government issues getting enough money and helping players grow from the very beginning are just some of the problems that the sport is trying to fix. It was FIFA that put the All India Football Federation, the AIFF, on its blacklist. This was a big moment in Indian football history, and it showed how important the rules are. A very large number of FIFA's efforts to make rules have been successful. This event has shown that Indian sports management needs to be clearer and work better. The AIFF's ban on football was terrible for the sport, even though it is an important part of Indian society and the economy. An international governing group for the sport will be affected by this suspension, but so will a lot of other people. It will be harder to get players, fans, and skill growth going. There have been problems with the way Indian football is run for a long time, as the ban of the AIF has shown. If the sports want to stay a secret gem, the people in charge need to be honest, trustworthy, and responsible. Indian football fans and players should pay close attention to this message. To be moral and honest again, they need to admit that the present system and institution need to be completely changed. Indian football needs to work together to fix problems with governance if it wants to get back to its glory days and fight on a global level. AIFA has been banned by FIFA. This is important information for anyone who cares about the future of Indian football. Indian cricket has a bright future because its managers and players are very good at what they do. The country is entering a new age of great football leadership, and it needs to stop avoiding its problems. When his team wins, the Indian national team captain doesn't like to brag. He insists the credit is shared between his teammates. This is the start of a very exciting story that shows what Indian football is all about. Even though the sport is very exciting, having the backing of the fans is very important. If the team can just tap into the passion and drive off its fans, it could hit new heights. In an emotional plea, the captain warns everyone to be careful of the impending dangers. He talks about a bigger picture that includes his own accomplishments and the amazing experience of helping one's country abroad.
You guys have no idea how important you guys are and how important your support is.
He begged the people in the crowd to cheer for the team, say what they thought, and do what they could to help them win.
Come to the stadium, do it on our face, scream at us, shout at us, abuse us.
But the boss was strong and humble.
You might start cheering for us. Please come.
In the middle of everything, the captain's plea for help stands out because it shows how both the players and the fans would gain.
In the stadiums, because they're working hard, they're a talented team.
The fact that people from different backgrounds can come together in a sport to support their country shows just how strong the bonds are outside of game time.
It's really important that all of us stand behind them.
He pleaded with the spectators to always be there for his team.
We'll try our best to make your time worth.
He let them know that support helps them keep a positive attitude even when things are hard or unsure.
Encourage us, watch us, abuse us, criticize us, have discussions, make panels, but please get involved.
In order to win, the spectators have increased their strength and focus. The British brought football to the region, which is one of the many important events in India's long history of sports. Indian sports were changed by cultural exchange and royal power, as shown by these events. In the late 1800s, a group of British colonial officials and soldiers went on a trip that would have a long-lasting impact on the country's sports culture and cast a long shadow over the huge Indian subcontinent. Football was a strange tool that brave British explorers brought to India. It became the most powerful sport in colonial India during a time when people wanted to rule the whole world. At first, British troops stationed all over the subcontinent thought of football as a fun, safe pastime. But the game became very popular in the green parks and busy streets of Imperial India. Fans in the villages and people working for the British government in British India planted the seed that would grow into football. The game was a big hit all over the subcontinent, from the green mountains of the northeast to the busy port cities of Bombay and Calcutta. India and Britain were brought together on the fields by their love of soccer. And as a result, cultures began to mix and blend in a way that we had never seen before. People in India were nicer and more willing to work with each other when football was first becoming popular there. During colonial rule, when the difference in power between non-colonial and colonists was more clear, it was easier to see. The sport may have started with its cruel colonial masters who used it as a way to control the people and bring people from different countries together. British support helped the sport grow. To show gratitude for the first people in India who played football, they have named a few clubs after them. India was a colony at the time, but those clubs showed the right mix of athleticism and community service during the golden age of football. By making a group where players could support and inspire each other, they were very important in shaping the future of the sport. It wasn't until the late 1800s that the attack of British India seemed to have healed. At the same time, football became more popular in both military bases and cities across the area. Indian football fans were enthralled by the energy and passion of British fans, and they jumped at the chance to join teams whose goal was to compete at the top levels of the sport. In 1888, the Durand Football Club was founded right in the middle of Delhi. The football club was light years ahead of its peers in terms of both fame and new ideas. The club, named after Sir Mortimer Durand, quickly became known in the country's football scene, and soon a lot of famous Indians were joining. It is also the site of the Durand Cup, which is usually thought to be one of the most prestigious tournaments of its kind in Asia. The first football game ever took place in Calcutta. At that point, sports were reaching their peak. Football teams like the Mohun Bagan and East Bengal were known for their strong will. They had the support of the British Army and local sports fans. These communities have done a lot for modern Indian sport. They became legendary in the world of sports and opened the way for even bigger and better things to come. We can find the golden age of Indian football by looking back at important times in its past. Following events show the guts, determination, and toughness that Indian football players have shown in the past. Mohun Bagan's win in the 1911 IFA Shield Final was one of those important events. When it happened, it was a big moment in Indian sports history. On the 29th of July 1911, as the sun was setting, the much-anticipated IFA Shield match between the fearsome East Yorkshire Regiment and the brave Mohun Bagan took place on the famous Calcutta Football Club pitch. There was electricity in the air because everyone was going crazy. The whole country was shocked by the win of a team called Mohun Bagan, whose players were mostly from India. I'm impressed by how determined they are. As a response to racism and British rule, Mohun Bagan's victory in a football game became a symbol of national pride. Millions of people came to see 11 brave native people, led by the amazing Shibdas Baduri, stand up to the British oppressors. There was a lot of strength in the unity. In 1911, Mohun Bagan won the IFA Shield. This was a big moment in history of Indian football. The event that took the sport to new heights was what set it off. There was a long-held belief that the British could never lose a football game. This showed that Indian football was a global phenomenon. Indian football fans and players now and in the future will be proud to remember this victory. The fact that Mohun Bagan won the IFA Shield in 1911 still inspires and motivates a lot of people. Because of these things, sports events can motivate people, bring people together, and break down barriers. In the history of Indian football, the declining period and the golden period are both important times. The records show the tough times and bright spots in the spots past, present, and future. There have been both happy and sad times in Indian football's history that can help you understand how it is right now. A lot of people played American football in the 1950s and 1960s, and Indian football spread all over the world. The Indian national team became famous all over the world because of how well Sailin Mana, Chuni Goswami, and Sayed Abdul Rahim coached them. People have called Indian players the powerhouse of Asia and the Brazil of Asia because of how well they do in big sports events like the Olympics and the Asian Games. But the joy of these wins wouldn't last long because Indian football would soon have a lot of problems that would stop it in its tracks. Cricket became the most popular sport in the country, despite problems with the sport and a lack of money for local growth. Not having a plan for the game's future and not wanting to use global football methods have made things even worse for Indian football, which was already in a bad spot. As time went on, things started to go badly for Indian football. After a string of bad performances abroad, they started to lose respect even in their own country. Compared to the good old days, Indian football is a total waste of time now. Not much has changed in the sport, it still has problems at its core. There was a turning point in Indian sport not long ago. As it deals with the effects of its great days, it tries to make sense of them. Even though the sport has a lot of real issues like bad leadership and no growth at the grassroots level, there is still time to think about what went wrong and fix it. Indian football needs to learn from its mistakes and adopt an attitude of creativity and teamwork if it wants to build on its impressive history and meet the challenges of today. The internal politics of the All India Football Federation (AIFF) and the subsequent ban from FIFA are two examples of managerial issues that have slowed the growth of Indian football. The All India Football Federation has a lot of power over the growth of football in India and around the world because it's the main body that controls the sport. Because the sport and its rules are so secretive, the administration's moves have been closely watched. There has been less growth and fame in the sport because of this. People with a stake in the AIFF find it hard to trust and work with them because of their disagreements, power fights, and pointing fingers. These self-centered goals and ambitions of key decision-makers get in the way of both workplace innovation and workers' chances to move up. The AIFF's internal politics got out of hand when FIFA got involved, and the government banned the group for letting FIFA have a say in how it was run. The Indian football community was shocked by this big move, which also brought attention to the big problems with how the sport is run.
Actually, the main dream is that World Cup, na? Because of the World Cup is organized by FIFA, so we can't play because of the FIFA ban. But
when the AIFF had been kicked out of the association, along with the penalties and FIFA's ban, resulted in India's football becoming much weaker and less competitive.
Indian football suffered a huge embarrassment today. FIFA has suspended the All India Football Federation. Indian players can no longer play on the international stage.
It also started a movement in Indian football and led the AIFF and other strong members of the group to call for quick changes in government and institutions. The fact that FIFA banned the AIFF brought substantial attention to bigger problems with the way Indian football is operated that have been holding the game back for a long time, and not just the ban itself. Being honest and professional are the foundations of every great sport tradition. The story stressed how important it is for sports managers to be honest, take responsibility, and follow ethical standards. Ultimately, Indian football has a long and interesting past that is full of complicated stories of ups and downs.
Capacity crowds fill the Ambedkar Stadium, New Delhi for the Durand football final between the giants East Bengal in light and Mohun Bagan in dark shirts.
Indian football has a story that shows how passionate, determined, and committed the players, fans, and everyone else involved with the sport is. The story goes through difficulties with administration and a slowdown. Indian football has a lot of open business and room for growth when you look at its history. Indian dominance and Mohun Bagan's success in the 1950s and 1960s show how important it is to work together and have a clear goal. India is having troubles with its government, its politics and leadership, and the national football team is in danger. Something needs to change and happen right now. The AIFF's ban by FIFA is a scary warning of what can happen.
Later this year, India was also supposed to host a World Cup event, the Under-17 Women's World Cup. India could now lose the hosting rights.
When leaders don't make decisions, keep things secret, and don't answer to anyone. If Indian football wants to get better, it needs to own up to its mistakes, be open to new ideas, work together well, and set clear goals. It is possible for Indian football to reach its full potential if it focuses on developing players at the basic level, make infrastructures better, encourage professional culture, and fixes its structural problems. Playing a sport can bring people together, inspire them, and maybe even change their lives, says Indian football. Solidarity, hope, and power are the main ideas of this book. Indian football will always be a national asset.